we've been getting an update from officials in Minnesota following this morning's tragedy, that shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. 2 children were killed, pronounced dead on the scene. 3 adults, 14 other children were injured by gunfire. Those children all between the ages of 6 and 15. 6 of them believed to still be in critical condition at this hour. And we did just hear that all of the injured survivors are expected to survive. So a little bit of relieving news here at this hour. I'm Casey Hunt. You're watching CNN. We've been in live breaking news coverage all day on this, and we're going to continue our live coverage and analysis with our law enforcement experts. Let's get started with CNN senior crime and justice correspondent Shimon Prokupecz. Shimon, who has just arrived on the scene here. Shimon, obviously just a devastating day for this community. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
You know, Casey, I'm really struck by just how quiet everything is here. I mean, it is so quiet that it almost speaks to probably the trauma that this community is experiencing, is going to experience in the months and weeks and years ahead. And I'm struck also by, there's an electronic billboard announcing the first day of school. And one of the things it says is a future filled with hope. This was the sign that was welcoming many of the students, many of the parents to the first week of school. And obviously now that has all been shattered, all the hope possible for these families who are now going to have to deal with this. Those are just some of the things that I just got here, but I am so struck by what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling out here already. As you said, you know, there is some good news here. There was a lot of concern over the other victims here. The police chief here saying they are now expected to survive. Sadly, 2 students were killed. Really, when you think about the nature of this, and by every account at this point, there appears to be some planning here by this shooter, that he barricaded these doors, that he chose a specific spot perhaps where he can fire through a window, striking children who were praying in the pews of the church. The church is, I could see it. I could see it from where I'm standing. The school is behind me here, and there's the church just very close by it, and it's probably how the children would get there. They would just walk from the school. A couple of other notes on the investigation. That the weapons, a police chief there saying that they were lawfully purchased, they believe recently, and also very significant that what they're calling a manifesto. These are writings, obviously, that were scheduled to be posted on YouTube, but quick enough and pull that down. And so they are poring over those documents now. But the police chief here at this point saying that they don't have a motive, at least not anything they're willing to speak about just yet. They're doing search warrants, they're doing other investigations as they're trying to figure out exactly what happened here. And I think there was another really interesting question at the press conference, because I've covered so many of these, and this is a question that's always asked, where do we start so this doesn't happen again? And I think every police chief in this country would like to get to that point where they could figure out how to prevent something like this from happening. And I'm sure in the days ahead, we're going to learn a lot more about the shooter and about what was happening here. But most importantly, will be to learn about the victims and who they are and what this is going to do to this community. And so this investigation obviously is going to keep going. We're seeing crime scene investigators here. For the law enforcement community, it's going to be tough to having to witness such a horrific event, having to deal with these children that they were encountering who were injured, and what that crime scene must look like. And now we wait to hear more. You know, another thing on the victims, I just want to say 17 injured about now. So again, Casey, I mean, such good news here to know that most of those victims that are in the hospital now are going to survive. And we wait to hear more about exactly how things unfolded here. And the big question is going to be why, right? Certainly that's something this community wants answered.
Shimon, I was struck by that question too when the police chief was asked, what do we do? And he said, I wrote it down. He said, quote, I don't have an answer for that at this time. And it just really striking. And, Shimon, you alluded to this. You have covered too many of these. I mean, every single one of these children, every single time, it is too many. And you have also kept in touch with many who have been affected by events like this. Can you tell us a little bit about what the families of the victims are facing and what the children, I mean, these were such young children, to see something like this happen in front of them. What's next for them?
I think there's going to be a lot of questions of what could have been done to prevent this. By all accounts, right now, as far as we know, law enforcement reacted very quickly here. The school did everything they possibly could. The fact that the gunman had to go outside and start firing through the windows. I've not heard of a situation like this before. It's usually of the gunman entering the school, forcing their way in, perhaps getting inside. This community, they're going to have to stick together. They're going to have to get together. The families are going to have to rely on each other to try and get through this. The local leaders are going to have to provide as much support as possible, answers and transparency, and making sure these families know everything. Certainly before we find out, certainly before anything is released, the families should know first, and that is something that authorities should consider. And just the level of trauma that is going to hit these people, the victims, the community, the teachers, law enforcement, everyone will be affected by this here. And they're going to need a lot of time and a lot of respect and a lot of patience to deal with, to give them the space that they need to try and process what happened here. It's going to be really, really difficult for them. And I think that's an understatement, and it's very obvious. But they're going to want to know things. And I'm hoping they get those answers, at least to give them some peace in these very, very, very difficult moments. And it's going to be really, really, really hard for them.
It absolutely is. And Shimon, before I let you go, I know you have a lot of reporting to do because you just did arrive on that scene. Can you tell us a little bit about what we do know about these two beautiful children who we lost today?
Casey, I don't know much at this point because, like I said, I just got here, so I don't want to do them any kind of,
Sisters,
I don't want to speak about them because I just don't know much about them. When I got here, I was able to listen to what the police chief said, and I know this police chief. A lot of credit here to him and for being transparent and trying to put out as much information as possible. And I think that is also an important part of this. He's doing it. He's trying to get as much information out there as possible while being respectful to these families. But this is a very different kind of situation in a way, because I'm still kind of, as I'm processing this, as I'm standing here, the idea that this shooter did this from the outside, I believe through stained glass window, is takes some thinking and takes some planning. And I think that's going to be something that law enforcement wants to figure out. And also, I say this in all of these situations, did someone know something about this shooter that perhaps, while they may have thought was weird or striking or concerning, and they never reported it? That does happen in many of these situations. I mean, he's a man in his 20s, right? So there's going to be a lot of questions about that, and where along the way did things change? And that's going to be a big question also for law enforcement that they're going to want answered.